Hello everyone, as you may know, I'm a fan of films, but I'm also a huge fan of video games. And we've had a lot of video games adapted into film. Some have been okay, others have been horrendously horrible. But there have been some hidden gems over the plethora of video game adaptations. I first played a video game with my older brother with the NES, then Sega Genesis, and then later on, I moved up to the Sony PlayStation, and for the past 2 decades, I've been playing PlayStation with the PS1, PS2, PS3, and PS4. I've had the pleasure and displeasure of watching video game adaptations. So it got me thinking, what are my favorite video game movies? And today, I'm going to share with you my top 10 favorite video game films. This list will probably differ from yours, so feel free down in the comments to share your favorite video game films. Starting the list at number 10 is Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within. This is one film that I did not like when it first came out. It didn't resemble the video game in any way. I was a huge fan of Final Fantasy 7 and 8. My brother played that on the PS1, and we were looking forward to seeing Final Fantasy. We saw it in theaters, it had the Spider-Man teaser on there, and it's one of the few films where I actually fell asleep on in the theater. But it's actually quite an intriguing film. It's also the first digital movie with photorealistic characters. And it was a game changer. However, it bombed at the box office, but this film was very much ahead of its time. And the graphics are amazing. This is back in 2001. It looks like a PS4 game. I love it. You have Alec Baldwin there, Don Sutherland, James Woods, Ving Rhames, Steve Buscemi, so many voices. And it deals with this character of Aki, who's pretty much investigating these alien-like phantoms that are invading Earth. So it's her and a group of soldiers having to fend off these alien-like phantoms. There's a greater love story, there's a greater betrayal with an antagonist, and it has a lot of action. In many ways, it looks more like Halo or Gears of War than it does Final Fantasy, but there's a lot of dramatic elements that feel very much Final Fantasy. And yeah, even though it's not like Advent Children or some of the other Final Fantasy movies, this is still a solid movie in its own right. If you just take away the bias you had over how the video games were and how this was adapted, if you look on it as a film, it's actually not bad. It's actually pretty good for a film on its own if you just isolate it away from Final Fantasy. It's not like Final Fantasy in the game, but it's still a solid movie and better than most other video game movies. Above that at number 9 is Hitman. Hitman was one of those films where I thought it was going to have a lot of action, and this is one of the few video game films that actually doesn't try to dumb things down. It does something completely different. It has a more slow, drawn-out narrative, and it's much better than Agent 47 Hitman. Timothy Olyphant's in this as Agent 47. We have Dougray Scott, Olga Kurylenko, and it pretty much involves this agent basically trying to find the organization that hires the hitman. He's been chasing this secret organization. And the hitman kind of comes between a crossroads with Interpol and this Russian military force after him. I love some of the action scenes, especially the hotel part where he hides the gun in the ice chest. And Olga Kurylenko and him have good chemistry. There's some great moments of action. If anything hurts this film is that it's really slow, when it could have used more action, could have used more stealth kills like the video game. But on its own, it's actually better than other adaptations. I found it more enjoyable than Max Payne or even Prince of Persia and some of the other ones we've had. This is actually just an okay movie. It's not the best video game adaptation, but it does something very different, and it actually tries to take the source material, I guess, seriously. It doesn't dumb anything down. It just doesn't have the flair and kind of style that the video games had. It kind of grounds it in a more low-budget type of way, but I still enjoy it for what it is. After that, at number 8 is Tomb Raider 2018. Tomb Raider 2018 is not as good as the original 2 Tomb Raider films, but I love it because it has the feeling of the 2013 remake. Of course, it's PG-13, but I love Alicia Vikander as Lara Croft in this. The first half of the movie is really good. 2 things hurt this film: the pacing and how fast everything goes without a middle, and her father being alive. But other than that, there's some moments that are recreated from the video game frame by frame, with just a little bit of differences. I love Walter Goggins as the villain. We get to learn about Trinity, and this is a very different Lara Croft. They try to kind of go like Oliver Queen Batman Begins here with her landing on this island, trying to find Himiko. They dropped the supernatural element, but for what it's worth, I do like that they actually made her look like Lara Croft. And it does have that Tomb Raider vibe. It does have puzzles, it does have action. I just think that they could have executed it a bit better. But nevertheless, the way it ends, I hope it has a sequel because she becomes the Lara Croft that we all know and love at the end of the film. And it just kind of makes me wonder what the future will bring on film. Was it as good as the previous ones? No, but it did take itself more seriously, and I felt like they were trying to make something different that also honored the reboot of the video games. After that, at number 7 is Tomb Raider: The Cradle of Life. This film has moments that are actually better than the original Tomb Raider, but it hasn't aged as well. I still feel like the first Tomb Raider has aged the best. It still feels like it's the most fullest experience of Lara Croft. But this has Gerard Butler, has some crazy action sequences. It was directed by Jan de Bont, who did Twister and Speed. And I do love some of the sequences here with the parachute, her driving a motorcycle in the Great Wall of China, and who could forget them finding Pandora's box. She also punches a shark in this. The soundtrack is great. Heart Goes Faster by Davey Brothers is fantastic. And I really feel like Angelina Jolie really owns the role in this installment. She feels more like Lara Croft than ever before. And her films are really a great homage to the first 3 video games on the PS1. I love Tomb Raider: Cradle of Life, and for a sequel, yeah, it's not bad. Not many video game films are good enough to get a sequel, and not many sequels measure up to the first one or are good on their own. And I feel like Tomb Raider: Cradle of Life is probably the best video game sequel along with Resident Evil Apocalypse. I really do, because it actually is a good movie on its own. It doesn't make you regret everything they went through, you know? It's not like Mortal Kombat Annihilation or Silent Hill Revelations. After that, at number 6 is Doom. Doom surprised me. Has The Rock, has Carl Urban. They go to Mars. Even though they're not entirely demons like in the video game, they're genetically enhanced monsters, weapons. And I love that. It has that Resident Evil 1 vibe to it. And I also love how it goes into first-person view. Even if it's such a short time, that makes up for it. That felt like the damn video game, like Doom 3 on the Xbox right there. I love that. I love The Rock. That whole twist and the fight him and Carl Urban have at the end. She's like, Super 5, motherfucker! I love that. I love that whole sequence. And it was dark. There's terrifying moments. And it had a story. It had a good pace to it where it built it up. It built it up to what's going on in this Mars facility. There's monsters, people are getting infected, people are dying, and then it leads to that confrontation of Carl Urban basically looking for his sister and escaping that Mars complex. I love it. If you love films like Resident Evil or Ghost of Mars, Doom is for you. Even though it's not 100% like the video game, it still is not a bad movie on its own, and the unrated extended cut is even much better than the theatrical. After that, at number 5 is Lara Croft Tomb Raider. I love Lara Croft Tomb Raider. This film has some cheesy moments. It is very much a 90s action film at the beginning of the 2000s, and we do have a different look for Lara. This is her all-black look. You see it with Dark Angel, the influence of this film, but Angelina Jolie actually looks the part, sounds the part, and she kicks ass and takes names. I love her as Lara Croft. It's a direct embodiment of the original Lara Croft. And this movie's great. Dale Craig is even in the film as like a love interest. You also have this robot and that guy from Game of Thrones as a villain. Yeah. It has some crazy CGI moments, but who could forget the action and soundtrack of this movie? It has that Raiders of the Lost Ark vibe. And they even got her real father to play Laura's father, John Voight. Say what you will about it, but it's actually entertaining and it's not bad. It's a Tomb Raider film that's actually good. It's a video game film that's actually good. We've had a lot of stinkers lately, and Tomb Raider is definitely a guilty pleasure, but also it's not as bad as the other ones. It's actually quite good. And I love that. And especially before we had other female heroes and like female empowerment in this decade, Lara Croft was a female hero who kicked ass and took names. And you didn't have to like make a big deal about it. She is Lara Croft, and I love that about her. Lara Croft is the female Indiana Jones, and if you're a fan of those films, definitely check this out. This is one of the better video game movies, and it makes my top 5. After that, at number 4 is Resident Evil Apocalypse. Resident Evil was pretty good. It wasn't like the video game, but it was pretty good. However, the sequels progressively got worse with each entry, but Apocalypse actually felt like Resident Evil 2 and 3 Nemesis. It did. It had the Nemesis, you had Jill Valentine, you had Carlos. Alice wasn't from the video game, but they had her. There are some moments that paid homage to Code Veronica. This film actually felt like the first movie, but on a bigger scale. It paid off that ending of the first film. And I love it. The soundtrack, you have The Outsider, Perfect Circle, Reinholder remix. Killswitch Engage's End of Heartache, Vermilion by Slipknot. And yeah, it's such a great action movie. You get to see the Lickers, the Nemesis in action, all these hordes of zombie and Umbrella Corporation destroy the city. And the end does leave more questions to be answered. And it's just a shame to see what happened to the series after this installment. Extinction just went full Mad Max scene, and they got crazy and zany. And it's such a shame, because this was actually a sequel like Lara Croft Cradle of Life that was good on its own, but I actually think this is like the best sequel because it actually lived up to the first Resident Evil and improved upon it in many other areas. And I love this. This was my film in 2004. And it was nice not only seeing a sequel to Resident Evil, but also see them just go all out with zombies, like the video game. Yeah, the story was different, but it was like the video game. And who could forget Mike Epps? And then you have Zach Ward. Yes, Zach Ward from A Christmas Story. He's awesome in this movie. I wish they had more of him. That scene with the zombie dogs. Yeah, zombie dogs are scary, but yeah, this is an awesome movie. If you have never seen any of the Resident Evils, check out the first two. Apocalypse is awesome. It really should have ended there. Above Apocalypse is Resident Evil. I love this film. This film was a sleeper hit. Low budget. It was in a time when there wasn't many zombie movies. We just had 28 Days Later, Dawn of the Dead, Shaun of the Dead come at the beginning of this decade. And Resident Evil was one of those moments. Paul W.S. Anderson, before he went all crazy. This is back after he did Event Horizon, Soldier, and the first Mortal Kombat. And I love this movie. Mila Jovovich is great as Alice. Sure, she's not in the video game, but here, Alice was human. She was vulnerable. She wasn't superhuman. I love that scene with the zombie dog. So scary. The Red Queen. That whole laser room sequence. Holy shit. I love Resident Evil. And that whole train sequence with the Lickers is fantastic. And then who could forget the ending in Raccoon City? Oh my god, I remember seeing that on HBO, such a sleeper hit, but even though it took some embellishments from the video game, it still had that tone and kind of horror, kind of suspense thriller element that the video games had, and it definitely had the Resident Evil spirit. More than the sequels, to say the least. After that, at number 2, I have 2 video game adaptations tied. One of them being Silent Hill from 2006. I love Silent Hill. Silent Hill is a video game adaptation done right that feels, looks, and sounds just like the video game. Has a sick warped story. Although we get to see the wife's point of view and the daughter instead of the husband, the video game had the husband looking for his family. We still get that, but this time it's the wife in Silent Hill. I love the fog, Ash. The whole twisted story behind everything that's going on is just tragic and just really crazy. It really switches the script of like who's good and who's bad, you know? I love that sequence of Ring of Fire by Johnny Cash going over and over. Burn, 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 and I'm burning ring of fire. I love that. And yeah, that ending is so climactic, and it leaves more questions at the very end of like what just happened and what's going to happen. It has so many crazy gore moments. Pyramid Head, the scene with the nurses moving. Oh my god. There's so much screwed up stuff. Even the little girl possessed. Although I wish they had the trailer version where she was all demonic saying, I am the Reaper. I love that part. Here she's just like, I am the Reaper or something like that. But nevertheless, my brother and I saw this, and this is an amazing movie. Not only is it a video game adaptation, but if you've never played Silent Hill, this movie is just a damn good horror film in its own right. And I recommend it for every Halloween. This is how you do a damn video game adaptation, and it's phenomenal. Another film tied at number 2 is Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. I love this movie. I'm a huge fan of 7. My brother and I were excited for this, and we got a form of a sequel with the CGI movie, and this is amazing. One-Winged Angel, that rock theme, the return of Sephiroth, but you also have these new villains. We get to see where the characters are after the original Final Fantasy VII. It's also photorealistic. The graphics are amazing. Sure, it's not as advanced as Spirits Within, but this, unlike Spirits Within, actually is Final Fantasy and feels like Final Fantasy. And you get so much more added to it with some amazing, phenomenal action sequences, graphics. And yeah, that ending with One-Winged Angel is so badass. One of the greatest fights. I love the original version of this, but if you see this, totally check out the complete Advent Children Edition. That is the way to go. The violence is more severe, and the story is greater. There's a lot more added to, like Cloud, Tifa, and the relationship they have with certain kids. And then how the group basically reunites after being separated for so many years. It's nice seeing Barrett and all these other characters. Totally, if you're a Final Fantasy video game fan, check out this. It's an awesome CGI film. After that, on my number 1 is Mortal Kombat. After all these years, Mortal Kombat from 1995 is still my favorite video game film. That's sad because 2 decades later, despite the shortcomings and flaws this film has, I think it's the best video game movie. It not only honors the spirit and story of the arcade game, but it actually is a really damn good movie in its own right. Just imagine 90s techno if it was merged with some heavy metal and Enter the Dragon, and that's what Mortal Kombat is. Mortal men and women defending our realm. It's not about death, but life. Oh man, I love Shang Tsung in this. It has begun! Robin Shou as Liu Kang, Bridget Wilson as Sonya Blade. Oh, Johnny Cage. This is the part where you fall down. Those are $500 sunglasses, asshole. I love that part with Goro. Sonya with like, you know what I smell? Bullshit. And then that other part where she's fighting Kano and she's just like, give me a break. And she's like, okay, and then snaps his neck. I love that. She kicks ass as Sonya Blade. And who could forget Christopher Lambert, the Highlander, as Raiden? There can be only one. I love this. He doesn't fight, but he still kicks ass. There's moments where he gets lightning. She's like, I don't think so. Especially the part where Shao Kahn's like, you weak, pathetic fools. I'll have your souls. And he's just like, I don't think so. And yeah, it's just pure awesomeness from the 90s. I loved it as a kid, and I love it now. And to me, it's the best video game movie. At least my favorite. So, that's my list for my top 10 favorite video game adaptations on film. Feel free to share your list. I would love to see what your favorite video game films are down in the comments below. You can follow me on the Stardust app at Fred Film Fanatic. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos. Don't forget to hit that notification bell for my new videos. Anyway, that's all, everyone. Here's some more videos you can enjoy on my channel.